Hello everybody to another tutorials video. This one's going to be tutorials 1.1 and it's going to be a continuation of the previous tutorial, which was all about characters, and this video is going to be all about character stats. Basically, the reason that I want to make this video in particular about stats is because each character has been made completely unique on the 05/01/2014 update, which is the one that introduced the new UI and stuff like that. And so choosing one character over another, so say you choose Jean over Marco, that has a very big impact on how you play those characters. At least when you start, once you actually get very good at 3DMG, you can easily accommodate for the differences in speed and the differences in gas values. But when you're beginning and you're trying to put all this together in a single cohesive frame of mind, basically, it's very difficult to order these things inside your brain as you're playing, which means that as long as you just pick a single character and you stick with them until you get really good, you should be fine. Now, if you're wondering how you want to know which character is best for you, that's what this tutorial is for, basically. I'm not gonna include blade length as part of this discussion because honestly, it's not that big of a difference once you actually get into the game. Like, it's pretty obvious as a visual difference. If you actually look at the models of the character, you'll see a very definite difference in the blade sizes. But once you get into the game, whether you're playing as Petra or whether you're playing as Marco, you should be getting those kills as long as you're skilled enough. And if you're not skilled enough, then you shouldn't be getting those kills either on Petra or on Marco. And that's just the way it is. Now, there's four major stats in-game right now. The first is SPD, which stands for ground speed, and this affects your running speed and your dodging speed. Next is gas, and this one should be pretty obvious. Basically, the bigger the bar is, the slower the rate at which characters use the gas in their tanks. A lot of people define this as the amount of gas that is in a character's tanks, but I mean, technically that doesn't make sense because all of the tanks are the same size, so all of the tanks should fit the same amount of gas. Canonically, it's based on how good the character is at saving gas. The next stat is BLA, which stands for blade durability, and basically the bigger it is, once again, the slower that your blades get eaten up. Except for Levi, who does have a little bit of an inconsistency because his blade durability is actually really high, but it does show it as being quite low. And finally, ACL stands for acceleration, but a better definition for it would be airspeed. So your character's top speed in the air, as well as how quickly you manage to reach that top speed. So in the end, it is acceleration, but it's easier to define it as airspeed. So yeah, between these stats and the character specials, which we discussed last tutorial's videos, different characters are actually good for different levels of skill among players, and they're also used for different reasons. So we'll start with Mikasa, and basically she has a high ground speed, but she has very low supplies. In fact, I think she has the lowest supplies in the game right now, which means that you are going to be running out of supplies fairly quickly, and it is going to be fairly common to be visiting the refuel station, but at least you won't be overly punished for doing so. Because even if you do completely run out of gas, the walk back to the supply depot shouldn't be anywhere near as bad as, say, if you were Armin or something, who has very low ground speed. So yeah, those three initial stats kind of go very well with each other. And also, Mikasa's acceleration stat is above average, which means that you're going to get high damage a fair amount of time, as long as you, the player controlling her, has a fair amount of 3DMG skills. So as long as you've got 3DMG under your belt, controlling Mikasa should be fairly easy to do, which means that she's not the best character for dummies to get into, but she does have her perks when you do. Now, the special requires a separate discussion because it can be off-putting at first because you just don't know how you could really use it, but it is very versatile once you get used to it, and it does have a lot of purposes besides just killing titans. Definitely Mikasa is the kind of character that you have to grow into rather than just picking up and being able to control really easily. Our next character is Levi, who has a very high acceleration stat, which means that he's hard to control for a lot of people, except veterans. So, an average skill level or a novice skill level will definitely be struggling controlling Levi and actually working with the 3DMG that he's given. Similarly, Levi Copter even though it appears easy to use, is actually a trap. And more often than not, it will get you killed rather than actually allow you to kill, because you know it's gonna screw up your approach, or it's gonna make you do something wrong that you otherwise wouldn't have done. So for those 2 points specifically, I'd say that save Levi for once you get better at the game, because if you don't master the 3DMG right from the start, it's very hard to control Levi. But yeah, all that aside, Levi's blade durability is actually very high, but the bar on the stats menu actually says it's quite low, and basically it's lying, I'm pretty sure. I don't really know what the deal is there, but I guess Feng just, you know, edited that a bit weird. But his blade durability is actually very, very high. And between that and his other stats, which is ground speed and gas, those are pretty average. So in the end, he isn't that much of a valuable character unless you really, really want high damage because of his speed, or you just want a lot of that mobility that comes with a high acceleration stat. On the converse, we have Armin, who has very, very low ground speed and airspeed, which means that he's universally slower than everyone else in the game. However, that actually does make him very, very valuable for new players, because a lot of new players don't know how to use 3DMG to begin with, so you know, they just kind of fumble through it. And because Armin is really slow, that gives new players a lot of time to kind of think about, you know, where they're shooting hooks, when they're using gas, all that stuff. It's basically bullet time with Armin. It's just very slow and very workable. And on top of that, his supply efficiency is through the roof. It is just insanely high. You know, between blade durability and gas, they are just insanely high. And on top of that, his special is actually very, very friendly towards new players. If they can't get kills fast enough, they just make the Titan laugh, and then it's all good from there. Next character is Marco, and he's an all-rounder character that fits pretty much every level of skill in the game that is possible. So even if you're really good at the game, you can pick Marco and you do fine. If you're really bad at the game, you can pick Marco and you do fine. It's only his special that requires a little bit more tact and a little bit more familiarity with the game, but apart from that, pretty much a new player could pick up Marco and they'd be doing a fine time, because his stats are so rounded. And in fact, Marco is also a very good introductory character if you want to see what type of character you want to play. So, you know, do you want to be a damage character or do you want to be a control character? Well, start with Marco and then see whether you want more of damage or more of control. And then depending on your choice, you can just switch out with another character. Or if you simply like Marco as a character, then by all means, play as him. Next character is Jiang. Now, Jiang has Armin's gas capacity, which by in and of itself is a definite plus. And on top of that, he has significantly more speed in the air and on the ground than Armin, which makes him slightly harder to control, but coupled with the fact that he has a grab escape for a special, he's a very, very popular character that has the ability to live for a long, long stretch of time. It's probably the most useful for average level players, because new players, like complete dummies, won't be able to make anything out of the extra gas or the grab escape, you know. Chances are they'll get grabbed, they slice out, and then they'll get grabbed in 10 seconds, and you know, it's very frustrating to have that happen to you. So yeah, although definitely a very strong character for newer players, definitely not the best choice for completely new characters that haven't even killed a single Titan, and you know, they get grabbed every 5 seconds. On the other end of the spectrum, veterans are skilled enough to not need extra perks like a grab escape or ton of gas, but at the cost of lower speed. So yeah, definitely this is for mid-level players who, you know, they can go into hard and they can finish a single player game, but they can't actually get, you know, high damage, or it takes them a long time to finish the game. Definitely for those people, Jiang is an excellent, excellent choice. Eren is our next character, which is funny because Eren is like Jiang's rival and they're right next to each other. But yeah, Eren has lower than average stats for pretty much every single stat, and that's a pretty natural balance against his special, which is Eren Titan. But unfortunately, most people don't seem to understand the value of Eren Titan to begin with, which then means that the low stats pretty much have no significance whatsoever. What I see very, very often, and it's so frustrating whenever I see this, is Eren Titan being used as a last resort by people who don't even know that gas exists. You know, they don't know that if you hold shift down, you start farting bubbles that make you faster. They're just like, oh, well, I can't kill titans, so I'm just gonna use a very easy method in order to do that. And that's just not the way Eren Titan was meant to be used. The real way it's meant to be used is it should be an option that should be readily available to use for saving friends and / or yourself. And basically what I mean by that is you should be killing titans during those 2 minutes that Eren Titan is loading up. If you're not killing titans, then you shouldn't be playing Eren. You should be playing someone like Armin, someone like Marco. But Eren's a character that shouldn't be used by new players because Eren is designed in such a way that it's not an exploitable one-trick pony. And so if you use it when you're a new player, you're basically harming your own skill level from progressing any farther. If anything, it should be used by average level players, just like Jiang, who can take advantage of Eren's stats in normal form when the Titan isn't required, and Eren in Titan form when it is required. Hopefully you guys understand what I'm trying to say here. If you don't, just ask a question, I'll be happy to answer in text form, because honestly that's probably easier for me. But basically what I'm trying to say is, Eren isn't an easy character to play with. He's made hard on purpose because Titan Eren should be used only very sparingly. But yeah, just to repeat myself the best that I can, Eren isn't a noob character. He's definitely someone that requires skill to play and skill to understand the difference between when you should use Eren Titan and when you shouldn't use Eren Titan. It shouldn't just be, oh, 2 minutes are up, time to use Eren Titan. You know, you really have to be an opportunist, and you really have to think about when the best possible time to use Eren Titan is. Okay, next character is Petra, and she has an airspeed almost equivalent to Levi, not entirely, but almost there, which makes her pretty much equally usable for damage purposes. So if you're not really into Levi, but you really like being a damage character, then Petra is pretty much your second choice. She does have more gas, but it isn't that much more useful in the long run. Ultimately, regardless of what character you're playing as, you're going to be refueling pretty often, unless you're playing as Jiang or Armin. But the key difference between Levi and Petra is actually in the special, because Levi's requires precision, okay? And it's much harder to take full advantage of halfway through play. It's definitely something that requires setup and something that requires forethought, rather than just spamming when you're standing right next to the Titan nape. Petra's special, on the other hand, is much more accessible as long as they use it on occasions that they feel requires it. Now, when do you know exactly when do you use Pizza Cutter? Well, you pick that up as you play more and more of Petra. You know, you start thinking, oh, I'll just Pizza Cutter onto his shoulder, which will then put me behind the Titan, which should give me easy access to the nape, which I will then do a normal attack on. You know, it's much more versatile that way, rather than just Levi Copter, where you can't shoot another hook until, you know, 2 seconds past the animation. So it's definitely a lot more versatile and accessible, and it's not simply used for just flybying any Titans that just happens to pass by. So yeah, definitely in that respect, Petra's a more approachable character than Levi. So if you want to get used to a faster speed or a more damage oriented character, Petra would probably be a better choice for starters than Levi. However, all that being said, she's ultimately a pretty easy character to control, as long as, like I said for Mikasa, the 3DMG skills have been mastered. And finally we get to Sasha, who is effectively a faster version of Marco, especially with the potato speed, and consequently a higher hitting version of him, so a more damage oriented version of Marco basically. Her stats, just like Marco, are generally all around, and it doesn't really favor any playstyle over another, but Sasha's been designed in such a way that you can actually use those stats to your advantage. You know, a fairly high blade durability means you can also provide a fair amount of support, like baiting by attacking the Titan, or even blinding Titans. You know, that's definitely possible. Or you can go full on attack with the above average acceleration that she has. And this is made even more prominent by the nature of her steroid potatoes, which can be used for defensive and offensive purposes as the player sees fit. Those are the 8 characters that are currently in game, and their 4 stats each. And yeah, I think that's pretty much everything that I wanted to say. Thank you guys very much for listening. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like, share with your friends and anyone else who you think will need it or will enjoy watching it. Comment, ask questions, Definitely on Eren or any of the other characters that you thought I didn't really explain very well, feel free to leave those comments or concerns in the comment section below. And be sure to subscribe for more of this tutorial series revamp. Maps should be next, but I'm waiting for the Colossal Titan and the Boulder map to be re-added before I dive right into that. So yeah, be sure to subscribe for those updates, and I will see you guys next time.